Well, hello, political sports fan. It's Matt, and I'm here to keep the score. Welcome back to the War Table. And today we have one of the funniest things I think I've seen in a long time, where it just made me laugh uncontrollably. And this is a funeral, so it doesn't seem appropriate, but we're talking about the funeral of former President Jimmy Carter and the interaction between Donald Trump and former President Obama. What can I say? Why don't we begin with the scores? Right now, the totals to date, we've got the left and the Democrats at -20. We've got the right Republicans at 15. We've got MAGA at 12, and we've got independent voters at 2. If you want to understand how we got there, you can go to an earlier video, and it'll go through one by one how we got to these points with all the stuff that's happened from the election, the day after the election, until today, Friday, January the 10th. So let's get right to it. Let's just get right to it. So going down, this is going to fall in. This gave 2 points. Points assigned are to MAGA and to the left and Democrats. So the funeral itself was quite interesting. You had everybody there seated together. It seems like a terrible security risk, but I don't know whose thought that was. There are people in the front row like Kamala Harris who are not in the image that I'm showing here right now. Kamala and her husband. You've got the Clintons, the Bushes, Pence with a terrible sour look on his face, Obama, and now Trump. And they're all there seated in the same, what would seem like maybe 5 meter wide by 2.5 meter or by 2 meter space. I have a lot of notes on this small event, but just taking a moment to consider this image of who on earth out of the handlers of these people would even allow them to be seated next to each other. And on the side of whoever organized the ceremony, this funeral, would have tried to stick them all in the same space. It just seems like a bad idea on so many different levels. So anyhow, on arrival, Obama sees, he walks in, Trump is already seated, and the usher points to the chair that's next to Trump, and you can see that he doesn't know what to do with himself. He doesn't want to sit in the chair. So he completely ignores Trump, doesn't acknowledge that Trump exists, doesn't shake his hand, looks around for other people to greet and shake their hands, and then finally he realizes that he's going to have to sit down. He's going to have to sit down. So he does. He sits there and he just looks straight ahead. And the moment after he sits down, Trump leans over and just starts talking to him. And I tell you something, when I saw this, it made me think of my days in Catholic school, where you already know before you're going to sit down that the guy who you have to sit next to is going to make a problem for you. You just know it. And this is, I'm talking about my days in elementary school. I went to Catholic elementary school in Washington, D.C. And this scene for me is something that happened on more than several occasions, where you know the bad kid, the kid that's going to get you in detention, they're going to get you a demerit, anybody who remembers the demerit system, and somehow when you file into mass, and God, you always have to go to mass for something. You know, when you get in there and you somehow get stuck next to this kid and you end up having to sit next to him, the moment you sit down, you know you're going to end up in trouble. And there you are. You're sitting next to the kid. And I remember myself, there were several kids who were just completely over the line. You're still in Catholic school, but there's always that kid who, I remember a kid who was always bringing a Bowie knife. He always had a million knives to bring into school. And somehow he would put these knives that were like a foot long into his pants. And then he would just pull them out in the middle of the class and wave them. Anyhow, so you sit down in church, and the kid will lean over to you, and he knows exactly what he's doing, and he says something like, "So there's a nun, and there's a chicken," and then you're just looking straight ahead, and you're trying not to listen, and then he hits the punchline. It's like he says something like, "And then there were feathers everywhere." And you break out laughing. You're in the middle of mass, and everybody turns around and looks, and you're in detention. So today, coming back to our dear friends Trump and Obama, the minute I saw Trump leaning over to him, I said, "Man, this is so reminiscent." And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Obama breaks into this. He laughs and has this huge smile, and you could see on Trump's face, it's kind of like, I got you. Like, I got you with a joke. You didn't want to laugh. You didn't want to shake my hand, but I got you with a joke. And he did. So CNN, they thumbnailed it as Trump smiling later on, but the moment that was captured was really just completely amusing. And if you haven't seen it, I would say go and look for it. And the tone in this image, where you can see Trump's wife with a serious face, this was I would say the tone of the whole room. It's a funeral. And so what joke do you need to make somebody break out laughing in a funeral? Who knows? I imagine one day Trump will tell that story, and probably it was a pretty funny joke. So if we back up a bit, other people that Trump, it wasn't just Obama who didn't want to shake his hand or acknowledge that Trump existed. Former VP Pence, he did the same thing, but he balled his hand into a fist so that he wouldn't have to shake Trump's hand. But Trump stood right there in front of him, and it was one of these moments where you could tell that Trump was non-verbally telling him, "I'm not going to leave until you shake my hand." So he did end up shaking Trump's hand. He didn't smile, that's for sure. George Bush, he wouldn't even look at him. He acknowledged Obama, walked right by Trump, acknowledged Obama with sort of a, "Hey, how you doing?" and tapped him and kept walking. So why am I pointing those two people out? Because this is really the old Republican Party. And it's really the Republican Party that would not have won. And this is the difference between the Republicans, the traditional Republicans, who still, I would say, who still do things in the very traditional Republican Party way, and the MAGA Republicans. So that's why these 2 points, they go to MAGA, 100% style points for MAGA, which essentially is Trump and the people around him. The way that he knew that this is somebody he's talked terribly about, but he still leaned over and told him some sort of crazy joke. That's MAGA. That's something historic. The moment, I mean. And on the left, it's 2 points for the left because the left still has Obama. And this is not complete redemption, but it's definitely redemption. Makes him seem likable and human again. To some degree, okay, to some degree, at least for the moment. After everything that happened during the campaign with his terrible speeches to minorities that were definitely not well received by minorities. So having these two guys laugh at a funeral like two Catholic school kids at Mass, I don't think we'll well, let's see what, but that's definitely the funniest thing that's happened in a very tense environment. So it's a pleasure to give those 2 points to both sides, or to these sides. The game continues. This was definitely a high value event, getting 2 points out of 3 points. The scores are assigned -3 to +3. And in closing, we will be back with more scores on the political battlefield in the next days, because I'm sure something else is going to happen. So until then, just remember, someday this war is going to end. Take care.